I can just hear them now, Charlie. Well, well, well. Look who came crawling back. Had enough of your silly time-travelling robots and your flying cars, did ya? You fancied a bit of magical dragons and hero questing, didn't ya? Admit it. You missed the goblins on horseback. Well, it's not that simple, but allow me to provide a bit of context. When I started this channel, I wanted the content to reflect my reading habits, to honour the past and to embrace the future. My genre reading background is mostly science fiction, but with a healthy dollop of pretty much everything else, including fantasy. I've read a fair share of the big hitters, The Lord of the Rings, A Song of Ice and Fire, Mistborn, First Law, Discworld. You know, those books that every single booktuber talks about in every single bloody video. Moving forward, even though my creative focus would be predominantly on science fiction, I wanted to experience one of the tentpole fantasy series that I haven't yet read. I sought advice. What do I need to read? And according to the fans, those that know better than me, there were really only two options. The Wheel of Time, a somewhat traditional high fantasy affair with the usual magic systems and chosen one epic storyline, and Malazan, or Malazan, Book of the Fallen, a sprawling, ambitious saga with a formidable reputation. To decide, I flipped a coin. Not figuratively speaking, no, I actually flipped a coin. Yes, having now read the first Malazan book, I now see how poetically kismet that is, having one's fate decided by the flip of a coin. But alas, it wasn't to be. This wasn't a case of foreshadowing. The coin chose the Wheel of Time. The wheel spins in the wheel. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. The wheel weaves as the wheel will. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. That's terrible. To cut an epic story short, I initially enjoyed The Wheel of Time, in particular, Book 4, The Shadow Rising. But then I started to feel fantasy fatigue, periods of boredom, resentment. What the hell am I doing with my life? Until I eventually gave up somewhere around books 9 or 10, I think. Many have since told me that this middle part of the series is known as the slog. Just a 2,000 page bump in the road before it gets good again. That may be the case, but for me, the damage was done. Everything else I was reading at the time was full of fresh ideas and surprising energy. So as a reader and a content creator, my brain had a bifurcation. Over here was fantasy, obviously brimming with amazing works, but also a known commodity to me, a predictable landscape, goblins on horseback. And over here was science fiction, a genre so wide and so diverse, it could deliver a never-ending menagerie of style and substance. The Wheel of Time killed fantasy for me. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Ever since that fateful day, the Malazan fans have been badgering me. Oh, Moid! If only the coin would have fell on the other side. Malazan is the best fantasy series ever written. Any fan of the Book of the New Sun will love it. It's not just goblins on horseback, it's proper big balls storytelling. Well, I do like big balls. Okay, I hear ya. But maybe more importantly, I hear the people close to me who I often share taste and opinion with. You know who you are. You wore me down. I will once again step into the realm of warlocks, fair maidens, and men wearing far too much leather. I will see what's on the other side of that coin. These videos cost money to produce, so please consider supporting the channel over on Patreon, where you can actually join the cult. You get access to our exclusive Discord server and the podcast, Radio Death Cult. You can use Buy Me a Coffee, which is an online tipping service, or buy yourself some merch over at the merch store, only available in black. Links to all of this down in the description. I really do need to get back in the gym. So this isn't like a proper book review, no spoilers or anything like that. No, I'll just get my point across. I like to read books, watch films and TV shows with as little knowledge of what's to come as possible. Now that usually means I have the vaguest idea through cultural osmosis, but I certainly don't read a synopsis or, heaven forbid, watch a YouTube video. But the Malazan Grapevine is one that quivers with talk of an extremely challenging read. A series of books that people love, but also don't always completely understand what the hell is going on. So I expected the Gardens of the Moon to have treacle-like prose, hundreds of characters, and a disjointed timeline, and maybe even that narration trick where the author doesn't feel the need to explain everything. That's actually not a bad summary of the book. There are a hell of a lot of named characters. Most of them have dialogue and make an impact on the story. The timeline and the geography is not always quite so straightforward, and Stephen Erikson absolutely does not hold our hand too tightly. Now the prose, the actual flow of the words on the page, was surprisingly smooth. We may not fully understand the context and the details of this world, but what we do know is delivered to the brain relatively effortlessly. Any fan of the Book of the New Sun will love it. I think I agree. It's not quite the same interface between the reality of the story and the narrative, but it does have that puzzle-like quality. It's all about balance and execution and ambition, because all of those fantasy tropes that I just said I was really bored of are all present here, and I love them. Wizards doing magic stuff, a mysterious empress pulling the strings, awesome looking characters carrying massive swords, a gang of lovable rogues hanging out in a tavern, and all the other fantasy cliches you can think of. But Erikson is saying, well, if we must play in this familiar playground, let's fucking play. So yes, I'm very comfortable with that style of storytelling. I'm always slightly straining to figure out what's actually going on, but with that comes a daisy chain of dopamine hits every time I figure something out. But these are all big picture plaudits, what I thought about the book in general. But I also have a long list of specifics that I loved. Don't worry, I won't talk about them all. The world building, the sense of place, and how the characters somehow organically fit into that world. Erikson has a fantastic cinematic eye. It felt like Darujistan had an establishing shot. I could feel the streets and the lanterns, and then we get that amazing rooftop scene. You see layers of the world populated by layers of drama. The weight of history. Again, pretty much every single fantasy book uses the past to build the narrative of the present. But Malazan, this is from the prologue. 1154th year of Burn's sleep. 96th year of the Malazan Empire. The final year of Emperor Kelenvad's reign. That's juicy. And then there's the scene at the aftermath of the Battle of Pale. So now we're not only right in the middle of a saga, we're in the middle of a battle. Well, the end of a battle, but you know what I mean. So from the beginning, the story doesn't feel predictable. It's not once upon a time there was an unassuming farm boy and an evil wizard. Which brings me on to maybe my favourite aspect of the whole book, the many shades of grey of the characters and how those shades can fluctuate depending on the situation. There does seem to be some inherently bad eggs in the cast, and indeed some characters that are wholesome or noble. But so far, everybody has a reason, a dilemma, or pressure from somebody else, or they're playing a different game, plots within plots and all that. And just when I thought I was getting a grip on the main story, which is the Empire taking aim at the last remaining free city in the continent, the gods get involved. I know it was right there from the start, but as you get deeper into Gardens of the Moon, there's a clarity to this whole other higher manipulation going on, and the terrifying power of the past returning to haunt this land. And the cherry on top, I finished the book feeling closer to the characters and invested in that ground level plot, the small dramas. I really need to find out what happens with the conflict. But also I'm intrigued by the magnified scale, gods, ancient ones, and interdimensional realms. All of these threads would be great books on their own, but Stephen Erickson tells these stories concurrently. And from what I've been told, we ain't seen nothing yet. So has Malazan cured my fantasy hangover? Well, yes and no. I still think I need something very special indeed to pull me back into this territory, but at least now I'm open to suggestions from people that know my jam. I'm going to take my time with this series, and I don't need to worry about what I'm reading next for quite a while. How many books are there in Malazan?
There's 10 of the main series, and then his buddy's writing some, and then he's gone back and he's done some more.
How many?
24, 25?
24, 25. Fucking fantasy.